long last. It's May, which kind of spells near the end of my spring campaign. Here, Dinton White Swan again. Once they start spawning, they shut it for a month, which is what you should be doing, really. I was meant to be doing a winter campaign film, and I did lots of vlogs on the GoPro, stuff like that, like I'd done in sort of one before in the autumn campaign. I'm not a huge fan of fishing right through all the elements and whatever, but it was quite a mild winter, to be fair. And I did have a go on a lake that I joined. It was down in the south coast and had a couple of big fish in it. Sort of one that went up, sort of averaged over around 55 pounds. Started off really well, even though I was a little bit apprehensive about it, because I turned up there and I'd read about it in Terry Earn's book, funny enough, when he was after a fish called black spot out there, or black scale. It's a lake that's very shallow, very featureless, and there's an area of snags over, at that time, east side of the lake, which he knew the fish were going to be. And when I got there, I could see myself, I thought, yeah, they're definitely, those fish are going to be over there, because it's like there is literally nothing. It's hard to get your head around it, something that a lead hits the water and it's already on the deck. So such as my naivety of used to lakes that are over sort of 10 foot deep. But yeah, it had these snags up along the side of it, and they had a rope that must have been 60 yards away from those snags, which was making me think this is going to be hard once it gets cold, proper cold, and they go in there and you can't fish for them. You couldn't get to that bank either. So the lake was already one up before I'd even really started. But I started off well, got a good fish, a fish they called the lemon, went over 38 pounds. It was gobsmacked. It was just like, thought, massive great unit, absolutely tore around the lake as they do in shallow water, all over the place. Great fight, was made up. Then my mate had one as well, so we thought this is really, really good, but weren't seeing much at all, to be honest. And I wanted to get round the lake, but as I said, without any features, it wasn't great. So I did lots of stuff up the trees and lots of trying to suss it out, but eventually, psychologically, I was losing, because I just knew that there's two swims that you can fish. One which leads up to the rope and you're just fishing as close as you can to snags, but nowhere near the snags really, because you're 60 yards off. And the other one was over the other side. Again, it would serve a very small section. So I left that lake with, well, probably early, to be honest. I sort of came back onto here in March, and this is historically really good on zigs. They love a zig, but Simon had banned them from the end of February, and I have to say I was all for it. So, now we're being forced to give them bait, and I had my first one, when was it, middle of March, had a banging common called the wormtail common, 35 pound, really chuffed. I was down in exactly the same area as where I was in the autumn, sort of come back, still had a feel about the weed bed that was, great weed bed that was there, that I was picking some fish off. But yeah, I went down that slope bit, had that fish earlier on, and I was sort of flitting between two swims that served the same sort of area. So I was having bites off one spot. And funny down here, if you're in a swim and you're working a swim, and I was only giving them small amounts of Trent bait, not much, just giving them what they love. And yeah, proceeded to just apply a small amount, nothing too much. Following week, came down again, and it was really, really stormy, and the trees above were sort of creaking, and it was one of those I thought, ooh, I'm not too sure about this. But I had a drop back from the swim that was next door, yet again, that only because somebody was in the swim to the right of it, and I didn't really want to put too many lines in a smallish area, so I was able to go and fish it from a different angle. Yeah, had a small 23 common, so that was great, and I only had an overnighter, so that was good. Then came down the following week. That's when it sort of kicked off. Three bites in a session, unbelievable. Capped off with the big one, which went 43.14, which was the one that they call the King Stocky. Annoyingly, I didn't really realise it until I sort of held it up and think it is the one I've had. We thought it might have been different, but I had one, funny enough, during a filming campaign for Gardner. Yeah, so you know, you can't pick them, you can't choose them. Unfortunately, I've had a couple out of here that I've doubled up on, but you know, it's the way it is. You're sort of fishing blind to a certain degree. You're sort of going, I tend to try and fish areas on here that I know that the fish that I'm after have come out in the past. And then, yeah, I had another two. I had a linear and a 28-pound linear, and finished it off with a Dinton cracker at 27. Mental, all the same sort of tactics that I've been doing throughout. Kept it simple, kept it hinge stiff rigs. Only sort of changes that I've done is I've gone into sort of crimping the stiff link of the chod section, so I'm able to really define how far I want the hook to sit up. So I've been keeping that literally exactly the same. And yet again, just looking at when you're unhooking the fish and seeing where that's hooked. If it's not hooked right, and I was sort of getting that a little bit towards the back end with some of the other fish I've caught in the past, with sort of the Ronnies and whatever, and I just thought I want the hook section to go in that little bit more. So lifting the pop up a little bit higher, nice little tiny 12mm Trent pop ups, drilled out with a cork stick put inside them, which, you know, that just gives them, literally, you'll get 48 hours out of that with it standing upright exactly without it falling down. Absolutely perfect. And the lovely old-fashioned just boilie, love it. It's my favourite sort of fishing. Yeah, it's lazy, but literally catapult, a few boilies around your spot, you know, build the swim. Don't just fill it up with spoms, which we can all get a bit carried away. They're still not really having it. They're not having any big beds of bait. It's been good down here. So far, this spring has been really good. The weather's been bloody awful. Don't know whether if I'd have fished here over the winter, I would have done better than what I would have done over at Chichester. But hey, you know, it's a lesson learned. Would I want to do it again? Yeah, no, we'll move on from there. And yeah, see how far this can go. There's been a few fish out all over the lake, which is lovely. You kind of want that. Yeah, we got a bit more to go. I've moved swims really because I got absolutely bored. I had the last couple of sessions I've been in there, not really feeling it. And as I talk to you, I've got one cruising out there. That the sun is out, which is absolutely lovely, and it's warm. And it hasn't been. It's been 2 degrees at times at nights, and now it's sort of like, you know, it's been lovely. But staying in the same swim when it isn't happening, nah. Time to get out. Incidentally, that I was catching in the beginning, the first couple of fish would come out of a left-hand spot. Couldn't get a bite off that. Then all the other ones came out on the right-hand spot, which is probably like 40 yards to the right of where that one was. And sometimes in here, they just kind of switch off. They just kind of move on. So yeah, see what happens. I'll keep you all posted, and hopefully we'll get a couple more for the camera.